The committee of whole is now back in order. Colleagues, we are now in the third round, floor amendments. The first amendment is from Senator Montanani. It is Amendment B1 10S SSM L2-3 P48. Senator Montanani, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is really just a simple amendment. I think we heard from the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority regarding their financial needs, and although they mentioned yesterday during their presentation and during the question and answer portion that they would be able to expend the $20 million appropriation, I just wanted to make sure that this opportunity was afforded to them in the event that they were not able to spend the money by the end of the fiscal year, this fiscal year.
On the amendment, anybody wish to speak on the amendment? Any objections to the amendment? Seeing and hearing none, amendment passes.
Sorry, point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, in your rules of engagement, you stated that amendments should be turned in prior to the third reading or the third round. And so there were two amendments that I submitted before. So on the day, it was yesterday, but they were rejected. And
yes.
So today, the start of the third reading just started today.
Yes. Senator, we made it clear during the rules of engagement that at the close of round 2.
No,
Yeah.
I can quote the transcripts.
Okay,
I have the
so
transcripts right here, and if I can ask the clerks.
Senator, those amendments would be at the bottom anyways, so we will address that in a recess. Right now, we're going to continue with amendments that we have. But I will address it with you in a recess.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We are now going to the next amendment. This amendment is by Senator Tello Taidagui. This is B1 10S TTT L19 P15. Senator Taidagui, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, can I just have 1 minute while I get my amendment out? I'm trying to find it right now.
Sure, 1 minute recess. Poll is back in order. Senator Taidagui, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to my colleagues, and of course, good morning to those who are listening today.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm sorry, so if I can, I just want to just say that, you know, our website is currently inaccessible due to an outage affecting our web hosting providers. So, and this outage will result in is a result of the severe weather conditions and at the data center. So our hosting provider is actively working to restore services as quickly as possible. So in the event that, you know, those that are trying to access or get onto that, these are the reasons why we're currently having some issues.
And it's from the host provider
Yes.
due to inclement or heavy weather situation.
Yes.
Okay, and they're working on restoring
Yes.
it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the announcement, Vice Speaker.
My
Senator
apologies.
Taidagui, you're recognized.
No worries. Thank you, Vice Speaker. Yes, too. This morning I've been trying to get on the website as well, so I'm glad to learn that it is being addressed right now. Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, my amendment, and Mr. Chair, I rise to offer this amendment to ensure that the remaining unobligated, unappropriated fiscal year 2026 excess general revenue are deposited into the rainy day fund. The amendment will add a new section 6 to chapter 1, general provisions, line 19, page 15, to read, Section 6, deposit of the remaining fiscal year excess general fund revenues into the rainy day fund, notwithstanding any of the provisions of law, all remaining unobligated, unappropriated fiscal year 2026 general fund revenue collection in excess of the adopted fiscal year 2026 general fund revenue level shall be deposited into the rainy day fund established pursuant to 5 GCA 22901, subject to the limitations set forth in 5 GCA 22904. Nothing in this section shall affect any appropriation for fiscal year 2026 excess general revenues authorized by law, provided that such funds that subsequently lapsed or revert to the general fund shall be subject to this section. No later than 60 days after the close of the fiscal year 2026, the Director of the Department of Administration shall transfer the amounts available for deposit pursuant to this section and shall report the amount transferred to the Speaker of the Legislature in Guam and the Office of Finance and Budget upon completion of the fiscal year 2026 financial audit. Any additional amount determined to be available shall be transferred to the rainy day fund subject to 5 GCA 22904. And of course, and for legal or clerks to renumber subsequent sequence and make any technical corrections as necessary. Mr. Chair, I think the events of this year make a case for this amendment better than I can. You know, when Sulaku hit, we turned to the rainy day fund in Public Law 38124. We authorized $17.9 million from that reserve for the emergency response. Then came Bobby. We allowed unused Sulaku funding to be used for Bobby and later approved another $13 million from the rainy day fund for response and recovery. And of course, we also addressed the farmers, the concerns of the farmers. This is more than $31 million in potential use of these reserves in a matter of months, Mr. Chair. And I supported using it. This is exactly why we have a rainy day fund. But the other side of that decision is that when we have the opportunity to put money back, we should. Unfortunately, we fall short in this budget bill because, and even the governor's substitute budget bill, only allowed $6 million into the rainy day fund, but the law requires us 2% of the revenues, projected revenues, and that comes up to $19 million. We are nowhere near close to the cap of a rainy day fund at $95 million. We did talk earlier to Lester as well as Mr. Byrne and asked them what are we looking at as far as the balance in the rainy day fund. And unfortunately, you know, after everything is done, that's left over is a little less than 50,000 or 55,000 in
55 million. Yeah.
I'm sorry, 55 million. Yes, thank you. And you know, we are already in the paper. I think it was the other day or today's paper, already seeing storms in the area again. We could basically wipe out our rainy day fund by the end of this year. And we don't want to get in that predicament where we fall short in the rainy day, because this also helps our bond ratings by having that reserve in place. You know, I know there will be arguments that we have other needs. Well, absolutely we do. And every one of us can name programs, agencies, roads, schools, services that need more funding. So I don't take this very lightly at all. And the decision to put money into the reserves rather than to spend it today was a decision made by people before us who had the foresight that it's so important to have a reserve fund. Okay. that being said, Mr. Chair, my time is up on my explanation of it, and I just ask for my colleagues' support. I believe that what we're looking at right now is only $4 million left over in the rainy day if we're incorporating the loss of 17 from the territorial fund of loss of that. So that's all we're looking at, $4 million. But I'm crossing my fingers that additional revenue will come in the next couple months. That would help replenish the rainy day fund as we prepare for any future storms. Thank you.
On the tide degree amendment, anyone wish to speak on the tide degree amendment? Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, and Biba Betness to the people of Guam. Thank you for watching on our YouTube stream. I just had a question for the author, if she's able to yield.
Please proceed, and we'll entertain
Sidus Masi,
her if
Mr.
she
Chair.
yields, yes.
Just if the author would so yield, does this deplete the remaining balance of excess revenues? So if we pass this amendment, does that mean that we won't be able to pass any other amendment after it that seeks to appropriate money from the same funding source?
Do you yield, Senator?
So the question is, again, and in simple terms, is that this bill will take whatever left over after we're done with this particular budget bill. That leaves us about $4 million only. Well, yes, it will. It will allow that $4 million to go into the rainy day fund. But as I mentioned earlier about the TAF, the 17 million that's negative in the Territorial Trust Fund or the Guam Territorial Trust Fund, at the end of the fiscal year, we will be $17 million short there. So if you incorporate that 17 million, all that's left is $4 million. And whatever we can do to put into the rainy day fund, it's very important at this time because we're bound to dip our hands in the rainy day fund again soon, and we're hoping that we have enough money to take care of our families, our community, and any kind of infrastructure damage to our community. So yes, it does, and I think it's $4 million that's only left.
Senator Barnett, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, may I ask you, if this amendment passes, would you then roll out of order any other amendment that appropriates money from the same funding source if this amendment will deplete the balance of the excess revenues?
I believe that would only be appropriate. Otherwise, we would be generating an unbalanced budget in terms of the requirements for the deposit, but also an appropriation. So that would cause that difficulty. Well, actually, no, not difficulty. It would be incongruent, and it would be an unbalanced budget.
So yes.
I would have to, yes, respectfully.
Yeah. Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on the amendment, which, in a normal situation, I would definitely support, as we've been, dipping into the rainy day fund till the sun don't shine. And we're now faced with this position where we have just very little excess revenues left. And this amendment takes those little bit of excess revenues, the $4 million, and it puts it in the rainy day fund. But the problem, as you heard from the good chair, is that every other amendment after this will be ruled out of order because of LATSAI funds. And the reason why we're in this situation again is because of the business privilege tax rollback. This is exactly what we've been discussing in the last budget session, in this budget session. With the BPT reduction of 4%, we don't have any excess revenues left on the table right now to do things like, for example, fund the residential treatment fund, $700,000. There are several good amendments in here that not only seek to address status quos and shortchangings, but also establish or expand programs that would serve our people and our island. So again, we're forced to make these difficult choices. Do we take the last little bit of excess revenues that are available to us in this session and lock them away in the rainy day fund and leave everything else unfunded? That seems to be what's going to happen here, and it's only going to happen again because the majority is proceeding with this 0.5% BPT reduction. And unfortunately, it's being supported by the governor, who I think in a radio interview this morning said that this was a compromise, but it's not a compromise. It's a caving. It's a caving. A compromise would be maintaining the 4.5% BPT so that we would have additional revenues to cover a lot of the things that still need to be covered, and maybe entertain things like power credits or direct assistance to our people. So again, Mr. Chair, we're just faced with this very difficult decision, but it's a difficulty of our own making, because the People's House has chosen not to prioritize the people. And those are the facts, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure what the grand total of the amendments in the drive is. I know that it was previously said in the previous budget session that, oh, there's $250 million worth of amendments and no one wants to raise the BPT to 8-9%. But that is disingenuous, because we know the process. It's first come, first serve, and it's our duty to debate and discuss these bills. And obviously, we would not pass $250 million worth of amendments. So just wanted to put those thoughts on the record, and I hope to hear from the rest of the members of the body, as this amendment pretty much, and respect, you know, with all respect to the good senator from Tamuning, because I support her, this will lock off any other amendments after it that seek to appropriate funds from the same funding source. And there are some good amendments in here, again, that would just be ruled dead on arrival, because the balance of what little excess revenues we have would go into the rainy day fund. So, Sidus Masi for the opportunity to provide a little clarity on what the amendment actually does, Mr. Chair, and good morning to you.
On the Tadigui Amendment, anyone wish to speak? Mr. Speaker, you're recognized.
Can we have a little bit of a recess?
Sure, 1 minute recess. portion. The committee of the whole is back in order. Colleagues, before we resume the amendment by Senator Taitigui, for the edification of the body on my ruling for the closing of amendments, I'm going to have AV play the tape on when we close round 2. AV, please play the tape. Mr. Speaker. Yes, we have exhausted the second round, which means the amendment portion is closed. We, however, will, at the request of Senator Montanani, convene. But prior to that, I've gotten a notification from Senator Borja. Can you put that on the record now? I know you will be going in also to handle the 2 o'clock, but please put that on the record now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the request of...
So the amendment portion did close, and any amendments that came in after round 2 have been ruled not acceptable for the floor. We are now on the Taitigui amendment, and Mr. Speaker, you're still recognized.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, the rules of engagement were given at the beginning of the committee on rules, so committee of the whole. So that, I think, should be looked at, researched, and I do have transcripts for that, and particularly you stated in those, in the opening of the committee of the whole, proposed amendments must be submitted in writing to the clerk via email at sessions@guamlegislature.gov and must be submitted before the 3rd round begins. Those are the instructions.
Okay, we'll pull the tape because I believe I also said when round 2. So we'll pull that portion as well.
Yeah, there was no indication,
So I will deal with that in a recess again. Thank you,
Okay.
Senator, and I'll bring that up.
Thank you.
I'll make sure that that's clear once again. Mr. Speaker, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You know, Mr. Chair, I stand in support of the Taitigui amendment. And for a number of reasons. We recognize, first off, that while this body has the responsibility of being able to ensure that the operations of the government can continue, we also have a responsibility to ensure that we provide the meaningfulness or the ways to ensure that the government is able to collect its revenues. Throughout this session, we've heard reason why we're in this spot is because one side of the House has decided to go ahead and favor the tax breaks, the tax cuts, while not ignoring the plight of the people. 2 points. First off, whether it's 5% or whether it's 4%, 5% of 0 is 0. 4% of 0 is 0. What I'm getting at is this government operates on revenues generated by business, by economic activity. That the government doesn't do. It's reliant on the fact that businesses are able to operate, that there's business activity, there's economic activity, that people can be employed. So that there is the effort to be able to collect that revenue that's necessary. Secondly, we always talk about we're ignoring the plight of the people. The people is the 165,000 or so people that live on this island. Not the people, not just the people who are going to have, who need to be able to make do with the funding they have to operate. Because the fact of the matter is there are businesses that we rely on to collect the 4% or the 5% that don't have the same luxury as the other people. So when we talk about the people, Let's remember the other side of that coin, the other side of that equation. And their struggle. The people that have to worry that if their business closes, they don't have income. And if they don't have income, they can't put a roof over their head. They can't put food on their table. They're not working enough to be able to provide the revenues necessary to run the government. And this amendment provides us that opportunity that just in case we may need this money down the road for another disaster, whether it be natural or man-made or a crisis that befalls because a government service can no longer be provided. It's not that it isn't provided, it can no longer be provided. That is necessary, that we have the means to be able to address it. So it's not a matter of staving off other areas. It's a matter of prioritizing and making sure we have the funding necessary to be able to address those needs without further hurting the people. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I recognize you, Chairman Duenas, we can just take a moment just to say hi to the kids who have joined us this morning. Thank you. Thank you for visiting the Guam Legislature this morning. Chairman Duenas, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair. You know, Mr. Chair, I support the amendment, and I wanted to address the fact that sometimes there's disingenuous on top of disingenuous. And I had to address the remarks of the previous speaker saying that, you know, the way we're supposed to do this is first come, first serve when we get to the miscellaneous provisions, and if there's latsay salapi, well, too bad. You know, I got to commend once again the former chair for joining me in stopping that practice in the fiscal year 2025 budget appropriations. And you know, we came back, Mr. Chair, as we heard the fiscal team talk about yesterday, that as revenues continue to grow within corporate and withholding, and also with BPT, we come in responsibly is what we've been doing afterwards and do a supplemental budget. And there was a full display of that, Mr. Chair. We all came together and the room was filled, and we sat down and we said, okay, we recognize there's some additional needs here, and we'll appropriate the actual excess revenue, not $250 million of disingenuous. So it's not a fight for, well, I was firster. It's a fight for the fact that, you know, what is appropriate? What are the real priorities? You know, that's the lack that I see on some of the argument of, you know, it's because you lowered the BPT, you know, that we don't have this revenue, even though this budget is performing at $88 million excess revenue. And you know, Mr. Chair, as I closed out my discussions yesterday on a similar topic, I mentioned that we have $70 million in reserves, Mr. Chair. How do those reserves come about? Those reserves come about within agencies that aren't able to spend their money. We sit here time and time again on the other end of the aisle talking all the time about a money problem. But they never face the fact that it's not a money problem. It's a priority spending problem. It's the ability to spend problem. You know, we teach our children, and good thing that children are here joining us today. We teach our children discipline. A lot of us teach our children about financial discipline, about the fact that the household only has so much money to go around. Therefore, we cannot waste food. Therefore, we cannot be wasteful in other areas. Therefore, when we go to the store, and yes, we want the brand new Nikes that are shining and all those that is $100, $150, but maybe we're going to have to go out and cut grass to make $50 or $60 so we can help mom and dad who are going to pay the $90 for those shoes. We teach our children that. That's what we try to bring into this house, Mr. Chair, that with a 1.4 now to $9 billion budget, at some point, you have to recognize what are your priorities. Because as the retiring speaker, my good friend, the speaker said, people are all the people, not just certain people. People are the people in the private sector that I've gone to the restaurants that said, thank you for the BPT rollback. My boss gave me a raise. The people who got the gas reduction by the gas companies who said immediately upon the 0.5 being reduced, they would do it. And they announced the day that the bill was signed that gas prices went down somewhere around 16 to 18 cents. There's talk about this not passing along. They passed it along. The employers who got to hold on and maybe pay some additional health insurance for their employees, but when they got to pay that BPT and it takes that money out of their business, they can't do that. So there's people all over this island. In fact, in the private sector, there's over 55,000 people who work every day to create this tax base that we have, along with the close to 12,000 government employees who also pay taxes. So there's people on Guam, Mr. Chair, all of us people. That's what our faith teaches us, that's what our discipline teaches us, and that's what we teach our families, and that's what some of us are trying to practice in here. What are your priorities? Not how do you go and find and extract more money in order to be able to unbalance things. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and once again, yes, welcome to the children who I know are getting a lesson constantly from their parents about priorities. Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Matanani, you're recognized.
I just had a point of inquiry and just request for additional clarification on what will happen if this amendment passes. If this passes, are we basically deleting all the proposed amendments in the miscellaneous provisions that relate to trying to pull money from fiscal year 2026? I'm just asking because I have an amendment in the miscellaneous provisions, and it's not from the same funding source.
Yeah, so as I understand the amendment, and maybe the author can yield, as I understand the amendment, it is simply the additional excess revenues that will be recognized in 26, other than what has been appropriated. If you have a different funding source, it will not affect it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
This is clear that it's the general fund revenues in excess of the 2026. Senator, I'm sure that's how you wrote the amendment, correct? So the senator agrees. If you have a different funding source, it does not affect your amendment, Senator. On the amendment, anybody else wish to be recognized? Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the way I'm reading this amendment, I feel like there's a disconnect with what is written and what is intended by the author. And maybe perhaps if we can have legal review this, because what it states is that nothing in this section shall affect any appropriation for fiscal year 2026 in excess of general fund revenues authorized by law. So we're still in the process of potentially making a law. And so if that's the case, then any amendment that's being proffered is still could potentially still be outside of the bounds of what this amendment is or
Stand by,
maybe the
ma'am.
intention.
Please be careful. That child is leaning over the ledge there, and I just want to make sure that we're very careful there. And thank you. Please continue.
Yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is that any amendments that pass with this bill and then become law will still be covered and protected by this amendment. And so what this amendment would do, it would use whatever leftover funds, basically it states any lapsed funds that have been reverted lapsed funds or reverted to the general fund shall be subject to this section. And so we heard through the committee in the whole that, you know, even the hospital appropriation was clawed back based on language. And so again, you know, if the hospital does not use this funding, so by the end of this fiscal year, so it really depends. So there's moving parts here. The other part is the actual implementation of distributing the funds that we appropriate. And so there is a potential for the hospital, should they get the funding, and you know, when they get the funding, you know, if they get the funding, that they may not have access to the funding that they need. And so unfortunately, we don't have that control within this body. So there could be unintended consequences, basically, is what I'm saying, because we don't have control of the disbursement of the funds after appropriation. You know, I'm for frugality when it comes to taxpayers' money. I think we really should save for the rainy day. I believe in that intent. But I feel that there might be unintended consequences with this depending on the implementation of appropriations that are passed by either previous laws or this particular bill. And it's not going to have the, basically the agencies that depend upon the funding are going to be left out in the cold. So that's my concern with this particular amendment at this point. And there's nothing we really can do, I think, at this point, as far as language is concerned, because we don't have control of the implementation of the money. Thank you.
On the amendment, anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Seeing and hearing none, the author may close.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I did ask for legal counsel to clarify this interpretation, because I'm hearing two different interpretations.
Legal is not present at this time, so we'll proceed with the amendment. And if the amendment turns out to be illegal, we can go back to it. The author may close.
Again, Mr. Chair, I thank my colleagues for having this discussion and understanding what this amendment will do. It basically tries to replenish the rainy day fund, which by law requires 2% of the projected revenues to be set aside. Unfortunately, we decided to use some of that funding. Instead of the $19 million that goes in there, funding was used to fund other areas of critical needs. So we veered away from trying to be financially responsible, to keep our reserves at a level that can feel comfortable with, because there are issues in our community that need to be addressed today. And we did our best in this budget bill. We did our best to address everything we can, but unfortunately, we don't have all the funding to address everything that's truly needed. But we did make a substantial, compromise, and I think the governor as well came into this and made a compromise as well. However, we still have that responsibility and duty for what will happen in the future. We can't only think of today. We must think of the future. We must think of tomorrow. So let's be fiscally responsible, because at the end of a fiscal year, we definitely don't want to spend the full excess revenue out, because we've been down that road. The prior oversight chair of OFB, Appropriations, knows just what happens when you over-appropriate excess revenue, when it looks like, on paper, 60 million, but then end up that we went into a negative of 30 million at the end of the fiscal year. And earlier was said, the people's money. This is the people's money, my colleagues, not ours. Hard-earned funding that was taken away from families to pay taxes to make sure that we have infrastructure, schools, roads, public safety, all put in place. So it's our responsibility to ensure that fiscal ineptness to ensure that we have funding set aside for emergencies. And believe me, we're going to probably see a much more in the future. And we need to be prepared to be able to give back. So other than that, I thank my colleagues for their support on this amendment and appreciate their comments as well. Greatly appreciate their comments as well. Thank you.
Susmasi, Senator Tadegui, the former chair and the current chair, concerned about deficits. On the amendment, are there any objections? There is an objection. All in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Amendment carries.
Mr. Chair, point of information. I believe senators just received in the email a communication from Annalyn Regis of BBMR. And I'm hoping that we can get this read into the record or at least passed out to the senators. She writes, in round 2 of deliberation on Bill number 110S, you, Chairman Duenas, referenced the $62 million that was reported in the Appropriation Reserve Report. They write, kindly see the attached file for more clarity on the subject matter and note that the strike-throughs of certain amounts denotes that it is anticipated that the agency will release all reserves to cover operational shortfalls. Additional release of reserves from line agencies are ongoing. The Bureau anticipates an influx of requests in the final months of the fiscal year. Should further clarification be needed, please seek BBMR for more information. And they've attached, looks like a chart. So I'd just like to get this passed out at least because it definitely has bearing on the ongoing discussions.
Absolutely. As is always. And I'm glad that BBMR made that clarification because exactly that means that all needs will be met. And they will be met within fiscal discipline that a ceiling allows for that type of reserve at $70 million. BIBA, good fiscal management. Okay, on the next amendment that we will be going into, this amendment is proffered by, once again, Senator Tadegui. The amendment is B110S TTT 25-26 I-20 P215 through 216. Senator Tadegui, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to propose an amendment to remove Section 83 of Chapter 12, Miscellaneous Provisions, beginning on line 25, page 215, in its entirety. Everyone should have the amendment in hand. This provision would raise the threshold of mandatory Attorney General legal review of the government procurement from $500,000 to $5 million. That's not a small adjustment, Mr. Chair. That is a tenfold increase. You know, without proper, public hearing to come up with this situation, Mr. Chair, I think that it would be, and to save time, I just ask my colleagues for their support.
On the amendment, anyone wish to speak on the amendment? On the Tadegui amendment, Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to speak on the amendment, which is one of the many Easter eggs that the governor hid throughout this budget bill. And I just have to say, I mean, Gaday, to increase the threshold by tenfold, we talk about compromise. I'm just not sure why they didn't increase it to $1 million. I mean, clearly, based on what the budget director said, there are certain things in here that the governor's trying to push through without the appropriate legal review. So I rise in support of the amendment, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. On the Tadegui amendment, anyone else? Seeing and hearing none, would you like to close, Senator? On the Tadegui amendment, any objections? Seeing, hearing none, motion carries. Senators, we are now on the next category amendment. It is B1, parentheses 10S, TTT, L19 through 26. Senator Tadegui, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to propose an amendment to strike its entirety of Section 86 of Chapter 13, Miscellaneous Provisions, beginning on line 19 of page 218 through page 219. This section fundamentally restricts the legal authority of the Procurement Council and the Attorney General within Guam's procurement system. You know, it is a significant and permanent policy change that should be considered through standalone legislation and not the Annual Budget Act. You know, under the current law, 5 GCA 5118 authorizes the Department of Administration to employ a full-time procurement counsel to assist the General Services Agency, GSA, and advise the Chief Procurement Officer on procurement and other civil matters while preserving the Office of Attorney General as the legal representative for GSA. It also requires Procurement Council to provide technical assistance to the Guam Procurement Advisory Council and assist in preparing procurement legislation, rules, and regs. You know, other than that, Mr. Chair, of course, there are other reasons I oppose the provision of this amendment that was put into the budget bill. As Senator Barnett mentioned, you know, an Easter egg like that. That was good. First, it creates conflicting legal authority. Second, it removes the Attorney General's discretion by requiring the Attorney General to designate Procurement Counsel as a Special Assistant Attorney General. Third, it reduces independent legal oversight. Fourth, the amendment removes Procurement Council's existing statutory responsibilities to support the Guam Procurement Advisory Council. So these are one of several of my objections. Finally, the amendment begins with the phrase, notwithstanding any of the provisions of law, you know, the famous words that can actually do everything, to change everything. Even laws that were previously put in place for a good reason. And again, it should be something that should have its own standalone public hearing well, it should not be in the budget bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. On the Tadegui amendment. Anybody wish to speak on the Tadegui amendment? Seeing and hearing none, would you like to close, Senator Tadegui?
I waive closing.
Okay. Any objections on the Tadegui amendment? Seeing and hearing none, amendment passes. Senator Barnett, thank you for that clarification, and I wanted to congratulate Senator Montanani that one of those reserve items is $20 million for GMH. So it looks like not only did you reinforce the $20 million for GMH, but they were going to release it anyways, notwithstanding the audit. So thank you, BMR, for sending that message to us. We are now on the next amendment. The next amendment, foregoing the 10S, which we know is TTT L14 through 25. Senator Tadegui, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to propose an amendment to strike out its entirety, Section 87 of Chapter 13, Miscellaneous Provisions, beginning on page 219. This section makes multiple substantive changes to the administrative rules governing the Government of Guam Health Insurance Negotiating Team. These are permanent policy changes affecting how the government procure health insurance for thousands of employees. So, Mr. Chair, you'll see that on membership, quorum was stricken out in decision. Again, first, it weakens the independent legal oversight by allowing Procurement Council to serve as an alternative in the Attorney General. Second, it removes the Insurance Commissioner from final recommendation process. Third, it creates ambiguity by removing the requirement that a quorum consists of voting members while leaving the voting requirement unchanged. Fourth, it transfers responsibility for investigating prohibited communications between offers by the negotiating team from the Attorney General's office to either the Attorney General or Procurement Council. Again, this is another piece of legislation, Mr. Chair, that should have its own public hearing. And lastly, it introduces electronic voting procedures without establishing the standards governing how those votes are conducted, documented, authenticated, and preserved as part of the public record. And for these reasons, Mr. Chair, I ask my colleagues to please support this amendment by striking out this provision.
On the tie degree amendment, anyone wish to speak on the tie degree amendment? Seeing and hearing none, or Mr. Speaker, you are recognized.
1 minute recess.
1 minute recess. The Committee of the Whole is back in order. Senator Tadegui, you are recognized for your close.
Again, I thank my colleagues for the question. You know, and I just want to make it clear to everyone that what we're doing is that we're taking this out of the budget bill. You know, the law still stays in place. We're not removing the law at all. We're just deleting the section out of the budget bill, and that's all it does. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Mossy. On the Tadegui amendment, are there any objections? Hearing none, amendment passes. Colleagues, we are on the next amendment, also proffered by Senator Tadegui. Once again, this is TTT L21 P220. Senator Tadegui, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. Before I move this particular amendment, I want to briefly explain the large purpose behind it. So, Guam chose an independently elected Attorney General as the chief legal officer for the government of Guam. You know, if that independence is meaningful, the office must have enough control over its finances, its procurement, and personnel to actually function, personnel actually to function, remaining subject to law, accounting, controls, and legislative oversight. You know, the ongoing conflicts between the Attorney General and the administration have exposed why this really matters. The Attorney General has taken legal positions involving the authority of this legislature while also reporting delayed allotments and disbursements, difficulty meeting contractual obligations, and recruitment and retention challenges, allegations of retaliation, you know, has also been raised. You know, whether or not we agree with all these allegations, an independent Attorney General should never be financially or operationally vulnerable because of the legal disagreement with an administration. This amendment are not about one governor or about one Attorney General. They are about protecting the institution of whoever holds these offices in the future. You know, independence must also come with accountability, but accountability should never become the means of control. So, Mr. Speaker, with my first amendment to address the Attorney General's financial administration is this amendment, which adds nothing, notwithstanding any of the provisions of law, which is under the Office of Attorney shall directly control and, which is underlined, be responsible for the conduct of operational matters addressing its financial activities in accordance with and consistent with the provisions contained herein. And then it moves down by striking out the Department of Administration shall establish for the benefit of the Office of Attorney, and then it strikes that out and it begins a new section B of a fund to be known as the Office of Attorney General, herein referred to as a fund shall be, and then striking out maintained by the General Administration Services Department of Administration, and this allows him his autonomy. Separate and apart from the other funds of the government of Guam, the independent record and accounts shall be maintained in connection herein. Financial statements dealing with revenues generated, expenses incurred of the fund shall be submitted to the Speaker of Legislature Guahan quarterly or otherwise required by law. And this is, now we include, no other government departments or entity, including Department of Administration, shall be allowed to manage the fund, including withholding amounts appropriated to the AG's office by Legislature Guahan. So that's on the first page, Mr. Chair. And of course, it moves on to discuss the further amendments that are made to it, but I don't know if my colleagues need a little bit more time because it is a quite lengthy amendment. So if we could just have like 1 minute to allow my colleagues to read through this because, like I said, they're listening to me speak and they're trying to read the amendment as well. So can we have just 1 minute to allow them? It is a long amendment.
1 minute recess.
Thank you.
The Committee of the Whole is back in order. We left off on the tie-degree amendment that I think everybody's aware of. That is lengthy and required some review. Senator Tie-degree, you're recognized.
That's it. I just wanted the opportunity for my colleagues to take a look at the amendments and even the prior ones, because they pretty much kind of coincide with each other to provide that support of the Attorney General's Office for Autonomy. So I think we can move a lot smoother through now that everybody had a chance to read not just this one, but the ones following after. So, Mr. Chair, other than that, I thank you for the extra time. And
Thank you. On the tie-degree amendment, anybody else wish to speak on the tie-degree amendment? Seeing, yes, Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand the need for this. I just, on principle, if there's changes to law, I would recommend that, there be a public hearing regarding this. That's just my thoughts on this.
Thank you, Senator. On the tie-degree amendment, anyone else wish to speak? Seeing and hearing none, are there any objections to the amendment? Seeing and hearing none, amendment passes. Colleagues, we are now on the next tie-degree amendment, and this is TTT L21 P220 II. Senator, you're recognized.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Chair, and colleagues, this particular amendment is exemptions. It just adds the Attorney General from being exempt from, okay, right, okay. So the exemption, so Mr. Chair, this amendment just adds the Office of Attorney General to the entities already exempt from centralized accounting requirements under 22205. The Legislature, Judiciary, UOG, GCC, GDOE, and several autonomous agents are already treated this way. Because the past amendment already passed, that this particular amendment would act in the same manner, because the previous amendment gave the ability for the Attorney General to handle its own finances. So again, this will allow the Office of Attorney General responsibility for managing its own finances. Our accounting laws should reflect the independence as well, as we have done for other agencies and autonomous agencies in our current Guam law. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On the tie-degree amendment, anyone wish to speak on the tie-degree amendment? Seeing and hearing none, would you like to close, Senator?
Waive closing.
Waive closing, okay. No objection to the amendment. Amendment passes. On the next tie-degree amendment, colleagues, this is TTT L21 P220. Senator Tie-degree, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My third amendment, of course, is to add, unless the Attorney General or Public Auditor for the prospective elected office can make a determination that additional unclassified hirings are necessary in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people. So, Mr. Chair, in this section, this amendment provides the Attorney General a greater authority to administer its own procurement. Importantly, it does not exempt the Office of the Attorney General from the procurement law. Let's make that clear. It does not take away from the procurement law that he must follow as well. The applicable procurement requirements remain in place. And I have to reiterate that, the Office of Attorney General will also follow the Guam procurement law. What changes is who administers the process. The Attorney General shall have responsibility, authority to procure the goods and services necessary to operate the People's Legal Office without unnecessary reliance on centralized executive branch procurement. This provides the administrative independence without sacrificing procurement accountability, and I ask for my colleagues' support.
On the tie-degree amendment, once again, it's P220 III. TTT L21P220 III. On the title amendment, Senator Terlaw, you recognize.
Yes, if the author would just yield, what was that about procurement? How does this relate to procurement?
Would the author yield? How does this relate to procurement?
Okay, I think what I'm doing is, I think I'm on the wrong amendment, Mr. Chair. Huh? I'm on the wrong amendment, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there's so many papers here. Can you give me 1 second, please, Mr. Chair?
So yes, you had just completed 220 II, and now you are on 220 III. And that, I believe you introduced this as, unless the Attorney General or Public Auditor for the respective elected offices makes a determination that additional unclassified hirings are necessary in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Guam. This is relative to unclassified, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think because the way that, oh, yes. Yeah, that's what happened. The way that the documents that were presented to me is kind of out of order.
Okay, would you like to restart on this?
Yes, I would.
Yes,
Thank
okay.
you, Mr. Chair. So to...
We are restarting the amendment as described. Senator, you have a new clock. You have the floor, Senator Tadigui.
Thank you, and thank you, colleagues. I'm sorry, there's a lot of paper on my desk right now, and I kindly ask for your patience on this. So, Mr. Speaker, this amendment makes a limited exemption to the existing end-of-the-term hiring restrictions for an Attorney General or the Public Auditor who is not seeking re-election. The general restriction remains, but the amendment allows necessary unclassified hiring when the elected official determines it is needed to protect the health, the safety, and welfare of the people. In the amendment, Mr. Chair, it adds in to this section of Chapter 2, Title 4, Guam Code Annotated, to read, unless the Attorney General or Public Auditor of the respective elective offices make a determination that additional unclassified hirings are necessary in order to protect the health and safety and welfare of the people of Guam. I believe that's the one we're on, right, Mr.
Correct.
Chair? Yeah, just
Correct,
to verifying again, so we don't go down this one. Mr. Speaker, they do not limit, accountability with respect to this amendment. They place a greater responsibility and therefore greater accountability directly with the Attorney General. This isn't about who occupies the offices today. It's about building an institution capable of exercising independent legal judgment, regardless of who occupies the governor's office now. So that being said, Mr. Speaker, I ask for my colleagues' support.
On the Tadigui Amendment, anyone else or anyone wish to speak? Senator Terlaw, you recognize.
Yes, this is an interesting amendment. So it's highlighting that we do have an existing law that prohibits hiring unclassified employees after October 1st for anyone not seeking re-election. It's, I'm sure, meant to, slow down the political hiring at the end of anybody's term. And so this amendment, however, makes an exception to that for the elected offices of the AG and the OPA, and allows them to make an exception. I like that the amendment says to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Guam. I feel like we might have an argument by the governor or any of the other offices, the mayor's offices, that their hiring would do the same. But I guess I just wanted to point this out, that what exists in law, how this would change the law. We do have, I don't know, I get a lot of comments about people being reshuffled at this time and are being hired right now, and it's only August, so it's not prohibited, but it is a little bit concerning if it's just for political hiring. But hopefully, right, they have and interests, all of these elected officials, to continue to serve the people of Guam all the way to the end of their terms, to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Guam, that all of these elected officials would do that. I saw the announcement the other day of there's promotion cycles going on in the police department, and a lot of people are being moved around there as well. We see a lot of people moving from unclassified to classified. And so this, again, this amendment would prohibit, well, the law already prohibits unclassified employees being hired after October for those people who, in the offices of the governor, the AG, mayor's offices, legislature's offices, and OPA's offices. And this makes an exception just for OPA and the AG. But I don't have an objection to this. I just, again, we give them benefit of the doubt that they're going to do what's best for the people of Guam and protect the intent of this law. Sizos Masi.
On the Tattagee Amendment, anyone else wish to speak on the Tattagee Amendment? Senator, Mr. Speaker Blas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I have to read this amendment over and over again because while I can see the necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Guam, which can be a broad interpretation for the Attorney General, but very respectfully, how does that fit for the public auditor? Secondly, in the language before the proposed amendment, it says that when the Attorney General, public auditor respectfully opts not to seek re-election. I don't know how this would, I'm just a little confused here. First of all, how this would, it would be very far-fetched in the public auditor using the criteria for the protection of health, safety, and welfare for the people of Guam to use that criteria for the additional hiring past the deadline. So and I really don't see that I'm going to have to respectfully object to this amendment. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
On the Tattagee Amendment, Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Sizos Masi, Mr. Chair, and good morning again to the people of Guam. As I contemplate the support of the amendment, I just kind of wanted to expand on, what this provision in law is meant to discourage political hiring when you have a lame duck governor or mayor or attorney general, I guess, in this case. But I do want to, just before I get into it, ask the author. It says here, as the speaker pointed out, no new contract workers or unclassified employees may be employed in the Department of Law or the Office of Public Accountability when the Attorney General or Public Auditor, respectively, opts not to seek re-election. So does would the author yield what happens in the event that they lose the election? Is that the same thing as opting not to seek re-election?
Does the author yield?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for that question. And I was going to make a comment in my closing to ensure my colleagues that, regardless if they well, first and foremost, the Public Auditor and the Office of Attorney General, they're not ordinary political offices. They ensure the safety and accountability of our government. And that's a whole 3 months from the time that, if they're not reelected, well, no, actually 2 months. And a lot can happen in 2 months. People cases are delayed, procurements are delayed. I mean, the government still moves on even after if we're elected or not elected. But this particular scenario, unless it says comma, unless the Attorney General or Public Auditor for the respective elective offices make a determination that additional classified hirings are necessary in order to protect the health and safety and welfare of the people. So it does have a caveat. Even if they are not reelected, they have a job to fulfill all the way to the end of December. So we can't really, if you think about it, on November, 6th, or I think it's 6th, if I'm not mistaken, we'll find out who's elected or not reelected. We don't want the work to stop. So, like I said, it's just a comma. In the event they need to hire, they have to show and determine, if necessary, when hiring, that it protects the health and safety and welfare. So they have to make a determination, even if they're hired or are reelected or not, by November.
Senator Burnett, you have the floor.
Si Diyos Masi, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if the question was answered, and I know that this isn't the section or the part of the section that she's amending, but just again, respectfully, it says opts not to seek re-election, which to me would mean they just decided not to run again, not that they were voted out of office by the people of Guam. And just specifically with any Attorney General's office, since their election takes place in November, I would just worry that this creates the potential for, hiring spree. And again, I'm just not sure on the language because of that opts not to seek re-election. So I don't know if the author would if she could just kind of focus on that part of the question.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that question. Yeah, you're absolutely right. If they opt not to seek re-election, or, I guess I could have put in that who are not re-elected, so that kind of, I know it's two different things, but if you think about it, it's those who opt not. Yes, you're right, absolutely. Okay. I'm thinking of a wider net, they opt not to, or they don't get re-elected in November. Just covering my angles, but you're right. You can make an amendment to include if they lose the election in November.
Captain Oza, I'm not.
to add that in there. But yeah, I understand. Thank you for that clarification.
Point of information, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
So just to answer the question, there's a section that precedes this one, 2109, prohibition against hiring new unclassified employees following the defeat of an incumbent in an election. So if you were to make an amendment, I would suggest it be done in that previous section. So maybe adding that, if that's a concern.
Sure. And I did get a note from the OPA that he has no unclassified employees. So I don't know that the OPA is concerned about this at this point. Yes, you do still have the floor, Senator Burnett.
Si Diyos Masi, Mr. Chair. So yeah, I just wish we could clarify that, because if we pass this amendment, it has no effect on, well, since the OPA doesn't hire unclassified or have unclassified staff, I don't think it would have an effect on the Attorney General's office. But again, I wanted to just kind of expand on the intent of this law, which, if you lose election or you opt not to run again, it's meant to put water on that fire where we have a lot of people who are trying to hire folks to, finish out their budgets or whatever. It's basically, political wheeling and dealing. But, in this same subject area, we are hearing many concerns from government Guam employees and employees in the private sector as well, that there is currently a mass movement to permanize limited term appointments. And so I was talking to a guy from an agency who told me that he was transferred over and made classified. There's also a lot of movement at the Guam Regional Transit Authority. And so, and then with the Guam Police Department, they're currently reorganizing the Guam Police Department. And what they've done is they've expanded the organizational chart and basically created new divisions that were previously under old divisions, which means we need all these new division heads. So, you know, the intent of this law really was to curb the political hiring that happens after someone loses an election. And I would just, you know, offer to my colleagues in here that it's happening right now today as we speak. As you know, we have a lame duck administration that's doing everything they can to preserve the jobs of their supporters in ways that I think kind of fly in the face of transparency and accountability. And it's happening across the government. So I think how we address that, you know, the leadership of the legislature is by increasing the amount of oversight over these different agencies, because it is happening now. And while we discuss amending this section of the law, maybe it's time to just marinate on ideas as to how we can prevent these kind of things from happening when we have an administration or, you know, a senator or any other elected official who isn't coming back in the next year. So again, just in reading the amendment, though, I'm not sure if the effect will be what the author intends it to be. So I'm not even sure if I'd vote for this without the clarity. Mr. Chair.
On the Tattagui Amendment, anyone else? Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also very concerned about the rush to, I guess, the hiring that's going on that we hear about. And yeah, I just, yeah, I think, yeah, I just want to register my concern about the mass hirings and right before an election, right? And yeah, I have my doubts about adding this particular language. In fact, I was thinking even maybe moving up the date versus October 1st, but just some thoughts. Maybe perhaps it's ready. It'd be good for a bill to have a hearing on the bill as a standalone bill. All right, thank you.
On the amendment, anyone else? Seeing and hearing none, would you like to close, Senator?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I hear the concerns of my colleagues and appreciate the conversation with regards to this, but this government still needs to move forward and do its job to serving the people of Guam. And if we get somebody in office like the Attorney General, most especially an area that dedicates itself to protecting our people and prosecuting those who harm our community, and also who oversee procurements and contracts, you know, their child services, protective services area with regards to, you know, child support payments. So if we have someone in office, an Attorney General, who decides not to run, which will probably be in what, the cutoff date is what, April? Before an election? That's how many months until the end of his term? What, he's not allowed, or he or she, who's ever in those positions, are not allowed to hire unclassified individuals if they opt not to run? You're leaving a huge gap of areas where the workforce on Guam right now is scarce. Go to restaurants, you know, just simple places like restaurants. They barely have people working in there, and then people jumping from one agency to another agency because there's openings in another one. I mean, it's getting chaotic, and our workforce is depleting. So the opportunity to hire unclassifieds, you know, is an option to keep our government running. But again, colleagues, think about it. If an Attorney General or OPA decides not to run, where the deadline is to file for candidacy is in April, what happens the remaining of those months till the end of the term? You're tying their hands. I appreciate Senator Perez mentioning, you know, if you read further on in the law of this section 2110A on Chapter 2, Title 4, it does address it if they don't get reelected. But this is if an elected official opts out. So I hope my colleagues understand that, and I don't think anybody wants to tie the hands of this government for how many months before the end of their term. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
On the Tattagee Amendment, there's been an objection. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Colleagues, we are on the next amendment, Tattagee Amendment. It is TTT L21P22, and this is 4, number 4, IV. Senator Tattagee, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And of course, this is the one on fees, correct?
It's this Treasurer of Guam is struck through, and it is Office of Attorney General.
Okay, just want to verify. So, Mr. Chair, this amendment is pretty much straightforward. You know, it allows the Attorney General to directly collect the fee for an AG clearance instead of requiring payments through the Treasurer of Guam. So, the amendment, 2 amendments ago that passed, gave the Attorney General the basically autonomy to move forward with their expenses, would also allow them to receive the funding directly. So again, it reads to every request for a letter from the Office of Attorney General to provide a statement about the disposition of a person's criminal arrest or criminal case, also known as the AG clearance, shall pay to, and this is directly to the Attorney General, instead of Treasurer of Guam, a non-refundable fee equal to the same fee charged by the Guam Police Department, Judiciary of Guam, for their police clearance and court clearance, whichever is higher. All fees shall be deposited into the Victim's Witness Traveling Housing Fund and used accordingly. So we're just changing out Treasurer to Office of Attorney General. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On the amendment, anyone wish to speak on the amendment?
Oh, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes.
If I may just, it does not increase the fees or change its purpose. The money remains dedicated, by the way, that money remains dedicated to the Victim Witness Travel Housing Fund. As at the bottom of this amendment, you'll see it goes directly into there accordingly. Thank you.
On the Tattagee Amendment, anyone wish to speak on the Tattagee Amendment? Senator Barnett, you recognize.
Mr. Chair, just like to ask the author if she would so yield. Was there an issue with the Treasurer of Guam receiving the payments? Was there some type of delay that warrants this change?
Does the author yield?
Yes, I believe there was. I mean, look at the last 4 years with the Office of Attorney General getting anything from the administration moving forward. This is a very important Victims Witness Travel Housing Fund. Does a lot of good for many of those who are in need, and it just stops any kind of delay. You know, we're looking at avenues that just try to, you know, sabotage the Attorney General's office, and we've been seeing it in the newspaper, hearing it from the Attorney General himself, how he can't move forward. So this is just one area to start doing some cleaning and ensuring that this fund is fully funded. So yes, it was requested by the Attorney General.
Mr. Chair, yeah, it is a very critical fund. That's why I was worried that there were delays, and it sounds like they were. So I think I'm going to support this amendment as it further moves the Office of the Attorney General towards autonomy. And we've all read about the reports of withholding allotments from the administration due to the little bit of political battling going on between the governor and the Attorney General. And I don't think that elected offices should be made to suffer because of a disagreement. So I support the amendment. Mr. Chair.
On the Tattagee Amendment, anybody else wish to speak on the Tattagee Amendment? Senator Gumatato, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the author will yield. Do you have any idea how many criminal history clearances are done in a fiscal year?
Does the author yield?
Yeah, criminal what? I'm sorry, I didn't get that last. But
Criminal
how
history
many?
clearance done in a year?
In a year? No, I don't have that number on me, but I can get it to you if you need be.
Because what you're asking for is us to change, that's what the AG clearance is. I think most of us would, as we think about some of the employment practices on Guam, most of them are done either with a court clearance as opposed to an AG clearance. I get Mr. Chair, the idea that politically speaking, there may be some tension between the Attorney General and the Office of the Governor today. But as we look down the road in the future, is this logjam that's being mentioned today, is that going to continue for the foreseeable future? And again, I ask about, how many it's done. Obviously, I don't think it's a bad thing, the Victim Witness Travel Housing Fund. And I was going to maybe ask the author, do you have an idea what that current balance is as of right now? Mr. Chair?
Does the author yield?
Yes, I do. And I don't know that number as well.
Thank you. Yes, I'm trying to understand the taking it away from the treasurer. And if these are small balances or these are large balances, if this is a critical public service that is being provided to those who might be engaging the Attorney General outside of the court clearance process, seems to be as robust, if not as robust as a police clearance. I'm just wanting to understand what kind of funds or operations costs this is affecting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On the amendment, anyone else? Seeing and hearing none, Senator Taddewa, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate again the conversation from my colleagues and their support with this amendment because, we can't predict the future. I mean, what happens if we get another governor in place who doesn't get along with the Attorney General, especially an Attorney General who goes after white-collar crimes in the government of Guam? And you have to ask yourself, those individuals might have been hired from our governor themselves. And we saw what happened when this Attorney General went after individuals that were in the administration. And of course, the governor didn't like that, so we shouldn't tie the hands of the Attorney General to go after these individuals who are losing the people's trust or, doing worse. So I think, again, put some house cleaning measures in place so that if this ever happens again, those funds that are used to help those who are vulnerable, those who are helped who are victims, are not in the middle of a squabble between the governor and the Attorney General's office. So I think this is good. We should have done this from the very beginning, that it goes directly there. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
On the Taddewa amendment, are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, amendment passes. We are the next Taddewa amendment. It is TTTL 21P225V. Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, this is, again, 30121.1 administrative personnel. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay. So moving forward, Mr. Chair, this amendment gives the Attorney General greater authority over the administration of the Office of Attorney General's personnel while continuing to require compliance with Title IV. So the reason is practical. The Attorney General has faced persistent recruitment and retention challenges, particularly for attorneys. Many of our delays in the procurement process is because there's not enough attorneys to go over these contracts and review and sign off on the Attorney General. So if we hold the Attorney General accountable for the performance of the office, the Attorney General should have reasonable authority to manage the workforce needed to perform his or her job. Responsibly for the office should responsibility for the office should come with the authority necessary to manage it, and I ask for my colleagues' support with this.
On the Tattagee Amendment, anybody wish to speak on the Tattagee Amendment? Mr. Speaker, you're recognized.
Can I have a minute's recess? I need to be able, you know, I get what we're trying to do here. However, when it says any reference to the Department of Director of Administration within chapters 4 and 6 of Title 5, I just need to know what chapters 4 and 6, you know. So if you give me a minute while I'm researching.
1 minute recess. Committee of the Whole is back in order. Mr. Speaker, you're still recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to research just a little further. You know, Mr. Chair, unfortunately, I have some very major concerns with regards to the language being proffered in this amendment here. It says that for the purposes, it says basically, the Attorney General of Guam is authorized to hire and appoint such personnel and to fix their duties and responsibilities under and in accordance with Title IV Guam Code annotated, as may be necessary for the purpose of this chapter. Any reference to the Director of Administration within Chapters 4 and 6 of Title V Guam Code annotated shall be deemed to refer to the Attorney General for the purposes of this chapter. Mr. Chair, I am just going to pull up one section within Chapter 4 of Title V. It's Section 4118, Cash Reports from the Department of Administration. It says, the Director of Administration shall certify and submit to Imagahagan Guahan and the Speaker of the Legislature and the Director of the Bureau of Budget and Management Research the following reports, which shall be also certified by the Treasurer of Guam, and a list of a number of other reports, of which this body commonly refers to the Consolidated Revenue Expenditure Report. So what this basically provides is that then it becomes the responsibility. It says any reference to the DOA Director shall be deemed to refer to the Attorney General of Guam, to the Attorney for the purpose of this chapter. It doesn't match. That is way out of the bounds of what the Office of the Attorney General and the Attorney General himself is mandated by law to be able to do. I'm just talking about one section of one chapter of the title. You know, there are numerous other references to the Director, the Department of Administration, and the Director of Administration, which has got no bearing and should have no bearing on what the responsibilities are for the Office of the Attorney General, much less the Attorney General of Guam. So therefore, I must respectfully object to this amendment.
On the Tadigui Amendment, anyone else wish to speak on the Tadigui Amendment? Seeing and hearing none, would the author like to close?
I'll waive closing, thank you.
Yeah, so on the amendment, there's been an objection. All in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. One minute recess. Colleagues, the next amendment is by Senator Tadigui once again. It's TTT L21 P220 6 VI. Senator Tadigui, you recognize. Say again? Yes, we are back in order once again. So I'll repeat as we are back in order. The amendment that we're on, the Tadigui Amendment, TTT L21 P22 VI 6. Senator Tadigui, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, this is to add a new section to Chapter 12, Miscellaneous Provisions on this section. So what I'm doing here, this amendment removes existing requirements that the Attorney General turn money received by the office over to the executive branch financial officer and submit duplicated receipts and monthly accounts through DOA. This works together with the previous amendment, but the previous amendment did fail. So if the Attorney General is going to manage an account for its own funds, it should remove statutory requirements that continue to route the same financial functions. So, Mr. Chair, because the previous I think, no, we haven't even gotten to that one yet. Can I have 1 minute? I just want to make sure that if this affects the previous amendment, then I will withdraw it. So I just want to make sure. Okay?
1 minute recess. Committee of the Whole is back in order. Colleagues, there is a appointment that was previously scheduled on the calendar for about 3 weeks with a briefing. So we will be back at 3 p.m. This afternoon. We're in recess till 3 p.m.